Bougie. I'm like, not really.
I think it's
Hey,
funny how that word's
everyone.
been around.
We were just talking about the word bougie. So if you love the word bougie, we want to hear about it in the comments. And what have you been told lately is bougie in your life? As soon as Virginia and I went live right now, or like she turned a camera on, I'm like, oh, your office is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So Virginia, welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your journey. You joined the boot camp a while ago, and what's been most profound in your life since being a part of our tribe?
Simplifying. So bringing it back into kind of my pace of life into my practice.
Mm. And just before we went live, I asked you what's been most profound, and you shared something that I think a lot of people need to hear. Will you repeat that again?
Yeah, I said it's been helpful to be able to step into my authentic self as a chiropractor and be able to be in that role as I'm working with patients, as I'm running my clinic, and not feel pressured to be anything other than that.
Yes. Where did the pressure before come from? Like, why did you feel that you had to do something other than what you're doing now?
Comparison, looking
Hmm.
at other people and things that we were taught in school that if you were only a successful chiropractor if you were seeing 300 patients a week, working crazy hours and doing it all.
Mm.
And
And
maybe
now,
that isn't the exact message, but that was the message I took home.
nice. I love that. Like that's the lens, and that's the that's what you heard, and that's probably what you observed, right? Like the offices that were spoke about, or the doctors that were talked about, that's kind of what they met. What they demonstrated. What was your life like before this big transition, and what is your life like now?
Well, before the realization,
Yeah.
I was a chiropractor, an associate chiropractor in St. Paul for a number of years. And it was great. I loved it. And it was a multi-doctor practice, and we were busy, and we were in insurance, and we were seeing everybody, and it was, one patient every 5 minutes at least. And I did that for quite a number of years until I had my daughter, and that's when things kind of started shifting for me. And then when she was about 2, I opened my own practice. And then that was kind of when everything started to shift, when my husband actually said to me, like, you don't have to work those hours just because that's what you worked at the other clinic. You
Mm,
can start to do what feels good to you and make this yours. And that's when it kind of started to shift.
nice. And now this year you've made a huge jump again.
A big jump. Yeah. So I decided to not renew my lease um, in Roseville, and I moved my practice into my home just
And
a couple
how's it
months
been?
ago.
Are you enjoying it?
I love it. I love it so much, more than I even anticipated I would love it.
What's so good about it?
I'm not commuting, which is fantastic. Not having that stress in the morning of being on the highway. Also,
Mm.
not rushing out the door, like getting the kiddo on the bus and rushing out the door to get to the clinic, and not forgetting stuff. I'm not packing stuff up and going back and forth. And so that's one of my favorite things is I'm not rushing around from place to place. I'm
Nice.
here.
Nice. And I've tagged you in a couple of posts, whether in the boot camp or on other pages, about the concern that often people have of, oh my gosh, then people are just going to be at my house all the time and they're going to be disrupting my family and I. What's your experience been, and how do you maintain that it's family first, even though your practice is in your home?
I feel I established that when I was at my other location, even though it wasn't in my home, that my patients knew these are my hours that I was going to be open. I don't have walk-in hours, so people weren't just walking in. They were on the schedule. They knew when they were supposed to be here. And that has just carried over into my home. One of my promises I made my family when we moved at home was I wasn't going to do anything that would make them feel uncomfortable. And so I've catered my hours around that too. So my hours are once the kiddo goes to school, once my husband goes to work, and I'm done seeing patients when they get home so that we can have family time.
And what have you found in serving people out of your home? Like what kind of response are you getting from your community, from your practice members? How do your husband and your daughter feel about it?
Everybody has they haven't batted an eye, to say it short. Like everyone's been just like, awesome, you're here. I actually had one patient who was telling me my massage therapist is thinking about moving her practice into her home. And I just thought, but what if you have crazy people that come to your house? And I just smiled at her and she goes, oh, we're in your home. I just realized what I said to you.
Yeah. And
So, I mean, I really made it like a practice, like a clinic setting in here.
yeah. And I think that we can either look for excuses and make those the primary things, or we can look for what do I really want? Right. And I've seen you can just continuing to chase down what do I really want? What brings me joy? What works with my family? And you know what? Maybe this isn't how it'll be forever, but this is what works right now.
100%. Yep. And that's been really scary shoes to step into because I always wonder what if. Like, how will
Mm.
people respond to this? Will they follow me to my home? How many people will I lose? You know, it's still those haunting questions are still there. But ultimately, you know, with the support of you and our team and the boot camp, it just makes it so much easier to sort through those thoughts and come to that. Like, you know, come to what do I want? And remember that that's at the heart of what's going to be the best.
Yep. And you know, it's kind of like we talked about during our live call yesterday, this idea that I'm supposed to make decisions that are going to be happening in the future right now. Well, if 5 years down the road you decide this isn't working for me anymore, could you make a decision on how to go back into a different place?
Right.
Yes, for sure. You know, it's so interesting how we get this fixed mindset that, oh, but what about in the future if something changes? I don't know about you, but my life has not gone according to plan the majority of the time, right? Like it's like a pilot. They say that what 89% of the time the plane is correcting course, right? Like it doesn't
Right.
just like go up in the air and then just stay right there because there are all of these turbulence and all of these things that are coming into play. And as human, we have the same ability to course correct and course correct and course correct and course correct because so far nothing's really gone exactly as I had anticipated. And when we go into it with that mindset, I think of even like when I picked up and moved my kids from Michigan to Arizona as a single mom, and I literally knew two people who were practice members who had moved there. And people are like, well, what if it doesn't work out? I'm like, well, none of you are going to change here. So I'm pretty sure I could just come right back and it'll be business as usual, right? Like there'll
Right.
always be a different place you can practice if it doesn't work at home. So what advice do you give to the person who's like, you know what, I've been thinking about having my practice out of my home. Where would you suggest that they start?
Well, start with the people who live in it.
Mm,
How do they feel about it? It's because it does put a demand on them too. Like I had to shift our family out of the space. And see how they feel. That's where I would start.
yeah, nice. And so the way that you have your systems set up, you only have one person in your space at a time. Is that accurate?
Yep. So I book about every 15 minutes. And so sometimes there's someone in the lobby while I'm finishing up with somebody else. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of overlap.
And are you loving the reduced overhead?
Oh gosh. It's so nice. It's
Yes.
just nice not to even have that worry of like remembering to send that check out every month.
Yes.
One less thing to
Yeah.
do.
Well, you send a check, but now it just goes from one account to the other account, right? Like it's going from your business account to paying you rent
It's just a transfer. Yeah.
Yeah, of your house, which is really just such a beautiful thing. Well, I'm super proud of you. Um, what advice would you give to the person who's watching this now or who will watch it later that has heard about the boot camp and maybe even had a conversation with me and they haven't joined yet? What advice do you have for them about being a boot camper?
It has really been amazing. I mean, I would just say do it. If it's just fear holding you back, feel the fear and do it anyway. Jump in. Like we were saying, things change, things shift, but you don't know what you don't know. And you're not going to figure it out by yourself floundering around.
Yes. It's kind of like, how do you know if chiropractic works? You start getting adjusted. But
Yep.
you for sure will not know if you just sit on the sidelines. And that's the exact same thing with the boot camp. Like all of you have seen a zillion stories like Virginia's of doctors who are living amazing lives, doing their practices just as they want to do them, being very successful and healthy and happy and having harmony in their life. And if that's what you're looking for, this may be the perfect place, but you won't know, like you can't sample it just by watching. You have to jump in and get involved for sure. So as we end this conversation, tell me about your experience on a sprint team.
It's awesome. It gets me out of my comfort zone. It's a little intimidating, but which is good. And that's why I joined the sprint, because you have the 50-60 boot camp and you have the tribe on Facebook that you can reach out to and the system on the dashboard that you can utilize. But the sprint really gets you into it. It really starts making you use it and think about it and adapt it to what's working for you and really see how the process works and why you want to keep doing it. And that's life. And if I wasn't in the boot camp, I would just be here floundering around on my own, trying to figure those systems out and delaying treating patients and making that impact. So the sprints have been really helpful just to stay accountable.
Yes. And it's so fun. Don't you find too that it's easy to let ourselves down, but when you're on a team, it's like, I can't let my team down, right? I got to ask for this referral. I have to do the systems.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you don't want to be the one coming up short.
Yes. And it's different than the comparison game. It's community. And really that's what we were created to do, is to be a part of community. That's just like written on our hearts. It's written on our DNA to be a part of a community. So I'm so glad that you're doing the sprint, and thanks for all that you contribute to our tribe. That's one of the things for those of you who aren't in the boot camp that I let boot campers know, like, here's the deal. Don't just be a consumer, contribute as well, because we all have gifts and all have talents and all have experiences, and we're all seeing life through a different lens. And because of our ability to harvest our collective genius, we're all going to be better off because of it. So there's no upper echelon. There are no cliques in the boot camp. We're all at the same level and we're all important. So Virginia, thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks for being a part of our boot camp. Thanks for being my buddy, and keep up the great work.
Well, thanks, Barb. It was great to be on and chat with you. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, you too. And beautiful place.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. And if I lived in your area, I'd be right there, because that's gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
You too.